How do I sound? Audio okay?
I'm just going to say a few words, Jared.
Okay.
Welcome everybody to the Federal Public Library. My name is Roku Channel. I'm the assistant director here at the library. We have on the line Jared Newman from Cincinnati, Ohio. He's in his home office right now. That camera is not broadcasting on YouTube. Only Jared can see y'all. So no worries, you're not being broadcast on YouTube. Jared Newman is a technology journalist. He is a guru when it comes to cord cutting. He has a free newsletter which I subscribed to a couple of years ago.
I don't understand.
Weekly. He has what now? 15,000 subscribers, Jared?
17,000.
17,000 subscribers. Chock full of lots of information. He's a great writer. He'll talk a little bit more about a free newsletter that's normally paid that you can get for free. This paid newsletter you can get for free with your library card. I will mention that later in the talk. So without any further interruptions, Jared Newman, take it away. Yes, I need to myself.
All right. Well, thanks for coming out, everybody. And I'm glad we're doing Skype this time because now I can actually interact with you in real time. We were trying to do a YouTube thing, the last one, and there was a long delay. So this is going to be really great. So as Rocco said, Jared Newman, I've been writing about technology for 10 years now. And I've been a cord cutter for 10 years. So I'm actually going to switch over to the presentation that I have here. And I'll go through that, and we'll have lots of time for questions at the end. So don't worry about that. Okay, can everybody see the presentation slide here?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And I'm going to make sure I switch over to it on YouTube as well. So just give me 1 second. I will do that. Oh, here we go. All right. So hopefully that's showing up on the YouTube feed as well. So this link over here is going to have this slideshow along with all of the resources that I talk about on here during the presentation. So don't worry about writing everything down, but definitely write down questions you want to ask me at the end. As I was saying, 10 years technology journalist. Most of my cord cutting stuff is on Tech Hive, which is an IDG publication like PC World, where I also write. I write for Fast Company, and I've written for Time and Rolling Stone, New York Times, and my newsletters are Cord Cutter Weekly and Advisorator, which covers lots of different tech topics, and that's the one that's usually paid. And we'll talk about them maybe a bit more at the end. You can subscribe to that for free with your library card. So it's a really cool partnership we're doing with East Meadow. So pretty excited about that. And like I said, when I cut the cord 10 years ago, for me, it was sort of out of necessity. I had just started freelancing and wasn't really making a lot of money, and I needed internet service. We had just moved to Los Angeles, and around this time, it was Netflix had just started streaming movies, and Hulu had just launched, and you kind of didn't have choices. It was really just about cobbling together these couple services, and maybe if you were lucky, you would tie in an antenna, and just kind of made it work out of necessity. And what's happened over time is, you know, there's been a lot of new competition. Premium channels like HBO you can get now without cable. Showtime you can get without cable. There's these live TV bundles that are kind of replacing the cable bundle that you can get over the internet. And it's great that you have all these options now. The downside is that it's kind of confusing to make sense of it all. So that's what we're going to talk about here. And I do want to kind of go back and talk about maybe just a background about like why cable got so expensive, because I think it kind of helps inform some of the choices that you might make if you decide to cut the cord. There's kind of this, I think it's sort of a misconception that like your cable company is to blame for your TV bill being so high. You know, they're just greedy, they're out to get you, and they're raising prices just because they can. And it's not really true. I mean, there's definitely things that the cable companies are not doing right, but there's sort of other forces at work, which is it's the TV networks as well. So as you can see here, Disney's kind of a good example, right? They own a lot of different channels, and they own ESPN, which is the most expensive channel on TV. And what they do is they say, okay, Spectrum or Comcast, they'll say, you know, if you want to carry ESPN and you want to carry ABC, then you need to also carry Disney. And if you want that, then you need Disney Junior, and you need all these other channels that maybe you don't want in your package, but you have to pay. You have to pay for them all, and by extension, your customers have to pay for them all. And they can also write these things into their contracts where they say, you know, ESPN, it has to be part of the most popular TV package that you sell. So you can't offer a service that, you know, only has ABC, and customers would have to pay more if they wanted ESPN. They generally, Disney has a lot of bargaining power. They don't really allow that to happen. So do you have Spectrum in your area? I can't remember. No. All right. Well,
Cablevision.
Cablevision, right? I don't remember. I don't think Cablevision does anything like this, but you know, Spectrum has a package now where you can like pick like 10 channels from a bunch of these different companies, but they don't advertise it to people who already have cable, and they generally don't offer it to people who have cable. You basically have to threaten to cancel or maybe cancel, and then they'll say, oh, here's this cheaper package that we'll give you. And the reason they do that is because they don't want to run afoul of these contracts that they have with the large media companies that they work with. And so it's not just Disney, it's all of these major networks, and none of them want to sell their channels separately. So you end up with these big packages, and when ESPN makes a deal with the NFL to keep carrying Monday Night Football, that gets more expensive. They pass that cost on to you. And the cable companies really, you know, they don't want to lose ESPN at the end of the day. So they agree to raise prices, and they pass that on. I think Cablevision in particular, there was a big contract dispute a couple of years ago, and they thought maybe ESPN would get blacked out. But in the end, they made a deal, and then your prices went up. So that's just what happens. And that's how we ended up where we are now, where the average TV bill is over $100 a month, and that's not counting internet. That's just TV. So I'm actually curious, how many of you are paying at least $50 just for TV? Yeah, all of you. Okay. How many $100? How many are paying at least $100 just for TV? Also, most of you. Okay. All right. So we have a lot to work with here. So that's, I wouldn't say that's good, but it's good in a way. So, you know, what happened is, because of the internet, Netflix sort of used that to start streaming video, and they kind of made it clear that they were going to try to become, you know, a direct competitor to HBO. And HBO saw that, and they said, oh, well, we need to actually start streaming video as well, because we need to take on this new threat that's Netflix. And then you had other companies like Dish saying, well, now there's these new internet options. We need to be on the internet too, otherwise we're going to lose customers. And so, you have more competition begetting more competition, and that's how we ended up where we are. So now we'll get into the big question, which is, should you cut cable TV in the first place? Sounds like most of you are paying at least $50 a month. If you're paying less, maybe you just got cable and you have a promo rate with.
He's talking about if you have the triple play. He's saying the TV portion of your bill, not the whole bill.
Right. Right. So if you have a triple play deal and it's whatever they charge over there, $90 a month for internet and TV, that's pretty good. And if you're looking to replace your cable TV channels, you're not really going to save a lot of money. You could, and we'll talk about some ways to, really save more money. But I kind of think of this as like the baseline of where most people should start thinking about cutting cable. And home internet service is kind of essential. Like sometimes people ask me, like, can I just, my phone has internet. Can I just use my phone as a hotspot and stream video from that to my TV? And that generally doesn't work for a variety of reasons. The main being that your phone has data caps that will really prevent you from streaming any significant amount of video at home. So if you don't have internet service already, by the time you get it, it's gonna kind of make it a wash to get rid of cable TV. But most of you have internet service already? Yeah. Yes? Okay, good. I mean, you never know. But the other thing is, it's pretty nice once you cut cable that, like, prices do occasionally go up, but the prices that you pay for a service like Netflix or Sling TV or DirecTV Now, it's the price that everybody pays, and there's no contracts or haggling for a lower rate. And so there's something to be said for just that peace of mind that you get when you're not doing these yearly promo rates. And finally, I really think of this as the most important thing, which is you kind of need to be a bit flexible about how you approach this. I've kind of started bouncing this idea around, which is that the easier it is to cut the cord, the harder it is to save a lot of money. And I'll get into kind of why that is later. Generally, like, if you're willing to sacrifice a channel or two, or maybe like you're not super particular about how your DVR functions, or you're willing to kind of learn how a new app works, or a new device, a new remote, it's going to make things a lot easier. So flexibility goes a long way. So what do you actually need? I'm going to try to slow this down. I've done this presentation a couple times, and I know this kind of trips some people up. So in terms of internet service, my rule of thumb is however many televisions you plan to be using at the same time, you want to have an internet speed of 15 megabits per second. I'm not sure what Cablevision offers around there, but so you have 3 TVs playing at the same time. Your advertised speed should be 45 megabits per second, more or less. And you will need, for each TV you will need either a streaming device like a Roku or a Fire TV, or a fairly new smart TV that's capable of downloading a lot of these new apps that are coming out. And once you have that, you will download and subscribe to streaming TV services like Netflix or DirecTV Now or Hulu. And you can hook up an antenna. I think that can help in certain situations. I wouldn't say that it's necessary all of the time. And depending on where you live and kind of what's around you, it might be more trouble than it's worth. So maybe I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I'm going to kind of reiterate here. So once you have home internet service and you have Wi-Fi that's covering your home with internet, and you have your TVs. Let's say like none of your TVs are smart TVs. Each one of your TVs needs to have a streaming device hooked up to it. So that could be, as I'm picturing here, a Roku. A Roku streaming stick will cost you about $40. So you would have to hook up one of those to each of your televisions. Now, if your TV is a smart TV already, then that particular TV does not need to have a separate streaming device hooked up to it. But you will need to make sure that that TV has all of the apps that you want to use or the services that you want to use. Sometimes, especially, I find this with like Samsung TVs or LG TVs, if they're more than 3 or 4 years old, they may not be getting new apps anymore. They're running older software, and so that's okay. You can still plug a device like Roku into it and effectively replace the smart TV software with Roku software, and that's fine. But each TV needs to have its own way to stream video. It's not like you plug one of these devices into one TV and it sends video to all the devices in your house. On the other hand, once you subscribe to a service like Netflix or Sling TV, that one subscription will serve all of the TVs in your house. You don't need multiple subscriptions for each of your televisions. So thinking about what services you actually need, I kind of think of it as kind of going down one of two paths. So on the one hand, we have what I think of as cable replacement services, which are Sling TV is a popular one, DirecTV Now, Hulu with live TV, YouTube TV. These all, they generally cost now in the $50 a month range. Some are less, some are more. And they're going to kind of provide a cable-like experience, a big bundle of channels. And then the other option is these kind of standalone services like Netflix or Amazon Prime, or Hulu has an on-demand service, which is $8 per month. And that's basically just a collection of shows. For the most part, there's not a live TV element. And you can save more money that way if you subscribe to maybe a couple of them, or but it doesn't give you the full cable experience. So I'll dive into that a little bit deeper here. So with the cable replacement services, like I said, this is how you would get the same channels that you're getting now with cable, ESPN and CNN and your local channels and your sports channels. And they all offer DVR, so you can record stuff and do all that. And it's sort of a more familiar experience in terms of you can, some of them tried to launch without a grid-based channel guide like you see on the right here, but they quickly realized that anybody who's getting rid of cable wants to have that experience of channel surfing. So it's more familiar than, say, going into Netflix and just picking a random show. It's really duplicating the cable experience. So on the downside is, like I said, these cable replacement services, they all cost around $50 a month, give or take. They've gotten more expensive recently, and the reason for that is basically the same reason that your cable bill is going up, which is that ESPN wants more money, Discovery wants more money, Viacom wants more money, and also this happened just last week. YouTube TV added Discovery channels, which they did not have previously. And so on one hand, that's a good thing. If you were looking at YouTube TV, you liked everything that it offered, but you just really wanted to watch HGTV and it was not available, then maybe that extra $10 for YouTube TV is fine and you're really happy. On the other hand, it's not optional. Everybody has to pay for it whether they want to or not. So these services are getting more expensive. You can still save money, but it's maybe a little more limited in terms of how much money you can save. And in terms of the DVR, so all of these services that offer DVR, what they offer is a cloud DVR, which means your recordings are stored on servers somewhere, and it works a bit differently. A lot of times there are stipulations that you don't get when you're just recording a show onto your cable box. So for example, Sling TV does not allow you to record ESPN channels. PlayStation View, which I think is a really nice service, but they only save recordings for 28 days. After that, they're gone. Hulu, their live TV service, I believe they offer 50 hours of video. They'll save it indefinitely, but it's only 50 hours. And they don't let you skip commercials as part of their base service. You actually have to pay an extra $15 a month for the ability to skip commercials. And so the other thing is that it's still going to be a little bit different than the cable experience, even though they try to replicate a lot of it. As you can see here, it's maybe just looks and feels a little bit different. So you still have to kind of learn it either way, and different companies handle this better than others. And this probably isn't the case in Long Island, but depending on where you are, you may not have all of the local channels available. I know Sling TV in particular, they've like made a point not to carry all of the local channels because that makes the service more expensive. So depending on which service you use, you may only get 3 out of the 4 of ABC and CBS and Fox and NBC. But probably by you, there's going to be, for most of the services, all 4 of the live local channels will be available. So how do you actually pick these services? That's kind of the meat of it, right? So the first thing I think you should do is come up with a list of channels that you absolutely cannot live without, because that's ultimately the most important thing, right? And once you've narrowed it down based on the channels that are available, you can kind of look at other features like which DVR works best, or which interface you like best, things like that. And all of these services offer free trials, so if you have a streaming device, you can kind of get a feel for it yourself. And I would say you could even maybe do that before you cancel cable. You know, play around with the streaming device a bit and use these free trials and see if it works for you. So this is a website that I really like, which is called thestreamable.com. And they have a channel finding tool where basically you enter in all of the channels or TV shows or sports teams that you want, and you plug in your location, and it kind of spits back a list of live TV services that have most or all of those channels. So you can compare the prices, and if I were demoing this live, you could kind of scroll down and see more information. So that's like a pretty good high-level way to eliminate the services that aren't going to work for you based on not having the channels that you want. There's another site which I also think is pretty cool. It's called suppose.tv. Similar idea to the Streamable, but it's a little more dense in terms of how much information it provides. So you can actually rearrange the order of channels, and you can specify things like how many devices you want to be able to watch on at the same time. Most of these services will allow you to watch on at least 2 devices at the same time. So you have 2 TVs, each with their own streaming device. They could both be playing a live channel, and that's fine. No extra charge. Some allow up to 3. Some actually have the ability to pay for additional streams if that's what you want. So this site actually helps you navigate through some of that information. I actually want to go back here to this one because there's a point I wanted to make about being flexible. So as you can see here, and this is actually, I probably should have updated this because YouTube TV is now $50 a month, but and they have HGTV now, but previously it was, if you wanted to go without HGTV, it's $10 savings. You could kind of make that decision. I would say that that's getting a little bit harder now because most of these services are starting to have more or less the same channel lineups with a little bit of difference here and there. So the other option is, and this is kind of think if you really want to kind of give some stuff up and save some more money, would be to kind of remove yourself from the cable bundle entirely. The obvious downside is that you're not going to get live TV channels that way. So if you need to watch a particular sports team, or there's a particular show that you cannot live without, this is not going to work for you at all. It's more if your idea is, I only want to spend $10 to $20 a month on TV, and can I just be sufficiently entertained for that amount of money? This is kind of something to look into. There is no DVR. I'm talking about services like Netflix and Amazon Prime Video and Hulu's on-demand service. There's not a DVR, so you might see sometimes Netflix will remove shows from its service, or will remove movies from its service every month. They'll add stuff, they'll remove stuff, and there's really nothing you can do about that. You can't record a show on Netflix so that you can watch it 6 months from now. That's just not how it works. You're kind of at the whim of whatever they decide to be carrying at any given time. And it's a steeper learning curve in terms of, you have, let's say you have Netflix and Amazon, and maybe you're throwing in a few different free services. Now you're bouncing between maybe 5 different apps, and they all have different menu systems. So it's a bit more to learn in terms of how you navigate around. On the upside, I would say you can argue that not having those live TV channels is maybe in a way a benefit. I think sometimes I hear from people who've cut cable TV, and they say, when I had cable, the TV was just on, and it was on all the time, and it was background noise. And now when we sit down to watch TV, it's kind of this it's something we do intentionally, and maybe there's something to be said for that. And as I mentioned, there's bigger savings potential. If you were to say, right now I watch 90% of my TV is Netflix. And I could actually be okay with making 100% of my TV viewing Netflix. Now, Netflix is $13 a month. That's obviously going to save you a lot of money compared to what you're paying now for cable. You're not going to get nearly as much stuff. But if that's enough, and maybe you can throw in some free services or an antenna, you can really save a lot of money. And, even though there's no DVR, it is kind of nice to be able to just choose a show and it plays. And most of these services, there's no ads, and a full season is available. You can binge watch, and Netflix kind of popularized that whole concept. So there's something to be said for this mode of cord cutting. And as far as how you choose this path, I think it kind of helps to pick at least one of the big 3 streaming services, which today is Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu. Netflix increasingly is emphasizing their original programming, so there's lots of new original shows coming out all the time. Hulu is increasingly becoming a destination for network TV shows. They've always carried shows from ABC and NBC and Fox that show up the day after they air on television. But lately, they've also started making deals with more cable companies, and for older shows, they have every episode of Seinfeld if you wanted to watch, every episode of Seinfeld. So Hulu is kind of becoming more aligned with the cable companies or the broadcast companies and their back catalogs. And Amazon's maybe a little in between. They have originals, they have some licensed stuff, they have a lot of movies, and it's kind of a nice benefit if you're already paying for Amazon Prime for shipping. And I'm going to talk about it in a second. There's some other services you can add to it if you want, and there's free services that you can use to kind of pad things out a bit. So this is another good site that I really like. It's called realgood.com, and it's basically a search engine for streaming video. So if you wanted to know where you could watch NCIS without cable, here I can see that they have all of season 1 is on Netflix, and in fact, I can't show you this here, but they have all but the most recent season of NCIS on Netflix. But if you wanted to watch the most recent season, you could subscribe to to CBS All Access, which is a $6 a month service that CBS offers. And so that's kind of a good way to figure out where things are, especially if you're just trying to find a particular movie or particular TV show. So once you've kind of gotten a sense of that, you can start using free apps to add out your subscription. So, Rocco, did you end up getting Canopy yet? I think you said it was coming in.
The library's subscribing starting July 1st.
July 1st. Okay, so
Canopy, and we'll have something through RB Digital, Acorn TV, I believe.
Oh, nice.
And some indie films, Indie Flicks, I believe.
Okay.
But that's not until July 1st.
And you have Hoopla already, or no?
No, Hoopla is not one that we subscribe to, unfortunately. Maybe next year. We'll see.
Okay. Well, Canopy's great. I actually think Canopy's a little better, but you enter your library card, you create a login, and they have a lot of like indie and kind of interesting movies that you can watch for free. And that's pretty nice. And there's no ads. There's a limit to how many you can watch per month, but it's a nice way to get some free stuff.
There are apps for Canopy for, I believe, Roku, Apple TV, so you can watch it on the TV.
Yep. Yeah, all this stuff that I'm talking about here, they all have apps that you can watch on your TV or on your phone, and it's also on your computer. I think the screenshots that I have here are on Fire TV, if I'm not mistaken. This is another good one, which is called Pluto TV. And what they've tried to do is replicate the cable-style grid guide, but they created their own channels that are sort of this parallel universe to cable TV. So, like, you can see NBC has kind of a live streaming news channel. CBS has one. There's like food theme channels. They have a whole bunch of movie channels. So if you just want to watch a movie, this is totally free. It's ad supported. It was actually recently acquired by Viacom. So I think Viacom is going to start adding some content from their channels soon. So maybe some older shows from Comedy Central will show up on here or something like that. So this is a pretty big source of free stuff that you can tap into. Again, if you're subscribing to a service like Netflix and you want to add more stuff without paying for a whole bundle, this is a good one. If you have a Roku device, they have their own source of movies and TV shows called the Roku Channel. They make a point of not having as many ads on their service. So it is ad supported, but their whole philosophy is less is more when it comes to commercial breaks. So yeah, this is it's a free download if you have a Roku streaming device. And news. So news is interesting. So if you want to watch one of the major cable news networks, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, you do need one of those live TV streaming services that I was talking about. But some of the other networks have started to launch their own kind of round-the-clock streaming news channels. So CBS has one called CBSN that I think is pretty good. There's one called Cheddar, which is a little more for the younger crowd, but it's they focus on kind of business and tech news, and they do a pretty good job. So you can check some of those out. Some of these are actually available in Pluto TV as live streaming channels, so you don't necessarily have to download, a bunch of different apps to check those out. And also PBS. So this is kind of a interesting topic because none of the live TV streaming services that I talked about earlier offer PBS yet. They're working on it supposedly, but it's probably going to be a while. So currently, there's actually no way to watch a live stream of your local PBS channel. But if you download the PBS app on your streaming device or on your phone or go on your computer, they have a lot of recent episodes that you can watch for free. It's actually I would say it's the majority of stuff that you could watch on PBS is available on demand. Crackle is another free streaming app with lots of movies and shows. They had some originals that are, I don't know, so-so. They have some movies and shows that are good. And Tubi is kind of up and comer and free movies and TV, and it's also ad supported, but it's kind of similar to Pluto TV in terms of the kinds of content that they offer. So just some stuff to check out if you are looking for more free sources. So as for an antenna, like I said, if you have if you're paying for a live TV streaming service, most of your local channels, or at least the major ones, are going to be available. PBS will not, and some of those digital sub-networks like MeTV or Comet are not going to be necessarily available. So you could add an antenna to get those channels. Where I really think an antenna comes in handy is if you've gone down that other path that I was talking about, where you've just decided to pay for Netflix, or you've just decided to pay for Amazon Prime and adding some of these free services. If you can get local broadcast from an antenna, then that means you can still watch, major sporting events. You can watch the NFL on Sundays, and you can watch, something like the Oscars, which is going to be on broadcast TV. So that is a really nice way to supplement one of these live TV streaming services. This is actually what I use myself, because I'm not a subscriber to these live TV services. I personally just use Netflix and Amazon for the most part. And if you want to get really advanced with an antenna, there's a version of TiVo called the Bolt OTA, where it's just for antenna users, and you can plug an antenna into it. And so that would allow you to record channels from an antenna. And there's another device called Tableau, which also records channels from an antenna, but it works a bit differently. You set it up anywhere in the house, preferably where you get the best reception, and it streams the video to your streaming devices and your phone and your computer. So you can actually, one single antenna will let you watch live and recorded TV anywhere in the house. And they actually support streaming outside the house as well. That's a pretty neat thing. They both have subscriptions, but they both also let you purchase a lifetime subscription if you want to avoid paying a recurring fee. TiVo costs $250, I believe, and their subscriptions are $7 a month. And Tableau is $140, and you have to plug a hard drive into it, which costs a little more. Their subscriptions are only, I think, $5 a month. So I'm going to actually do some demos here, if you don't mind. Let me see if I can stop the screen sharing here. Oops, here we go. Oops. Turn that off. All right. And turn this off. Okay. Can everybody see me now? Okay. So behind me, I'm going to move out of the way here. Behind me is Roku, a very lovely aquarium screensaver that they have. This is the Roku Streaming Stick Plus, which costs $60. And we'll go back to the home screen here. So how many people here have a streaming device already? Roku or Fire TV, so you're kind of familiar with this. So I have a lot of apps downloaded on here, which is not going to be the case for everybody, but basically you would go to their channel store, and let's say you wanted to subscribe to YouTube TV, which, as I mentioned, is $50 a month for a bundle of live TV channels. You would download the app, and then you would subscribe to it. And let's see if a lot of review subscriptions here, so let's see if this still works. Oh yeah, see, we're adding Discovery channels and your price is going up, as you can see. But here we go. So it's I have a screen with recommendations. Here's the live TV channel guide that you can scroll through, and it's a very, I think YouTube TV is pretty nice in terms of it's easy to use. The price has gone up, but it's a good list of channels. The DVR is, they will save your recordings for $9 for 9 months. So, and you can save as many shows as you want. So let's see here. More info. If I want to record Family Guy, I would just say add to my library. And then the shows are just going to pop up in my library section. Let's see. Yeah. So here we go. You can check out Tubi TV. This is, as I mentioned, is one of the free services you can try. It is ad supported. They don't make you sign in or anything, so that's pretty nice. You just download the app and start watching stuff. You know, it's free, so it's going to be a lot of older shows, but you can watch a whole lot of Hell's Kitchen if you want to and not pay anything. There's an ad. Let's see. What else do we want to check out? I have Fire TV here. Oh, let me show you the Roku Remote first. So, oops. Trying to do it between two cameras here. Here we go. So, yeah, a little different from the cable remote. They have these app buttons down here at the bottom, and there's no channel numbers or anything like that. It's just a directional pad, and there's volume buttons on the side. So if you're thinking about a Roku device, so there's a couple of devices that are cheaper called the Roku Express and the Roku Premiere, and they don't have these volume buttons on the side, and they don't have this power button on the top. So effectively, if you use that, you still need to have another remote around to control the volume and turn off your TV. I really don't think it's worth it. I think, you know, the Roku Premiere Plus, not to be confused with the Premiere, is $50, so it's $10 more than the other one, and it's really worth that extra $10 to not have to use another remote. So same deal with the Fire TV stick, this is the remote, and I'm going to switch over to the Fire TV stick here. Let's see. Here we go. So this is the Fire TV, and this is actually the Fire TV Stick 4K, and it has volume buttons here and has power buttons. Actually, the regular Fire TV Stick now includes the same remote, so you don't have to give up the volume and power buttons anymore. This device is a bit faster and smoother. I kind of think it's a $10 difference between the Fire TV Stick and Fire TV Stick 4K. I kind of think that if you're cutting the cord and you're going to use this device with any regularity, spend the extra $10 and get a faster, smoother device, because it's kind of nice to not get held up when you're scrolling through menus and things like that. This is Philo, which is pretty cool. I didn't really talk about it before, but it's sort of a different kind of bundle. It's still a bundle of live TV channels, but it's only $16 a month, and it only includes non-sports channels from AMC, Discovery, Viacom, and A&E. So if you're getting your shows from an antenna, or you're watching Netflix and you want to add this, or you don't care about sports and you don't care about news as much, or you want to use one of those free news services I was mentioning earlier, this is pretty nice. It's obviously a lot cheaper. It's a good example of how much you're paying for sports when you have another one of these live TV services. They have a lot of channels here, and 50 channel, all of that. That looks pretty good. So a little more about the Fire TV. So this versus the Roku, the Fire TV is a little bit more hectic. You can see I'm scrolling down here. They recommend a lot of stuff. This is the home screen of Fire TV, so you can kind of just flick around and maybe you'll see something that you want to watch and choose something, and that's kind of cool. But they're also trying to sell you stuff. They want you to download apps. They want you to buy movies, and they want you to subscribe to video channels. So it's neat that they're putting all of this stuff right here on the home screen. also a lot more going on. If I go back to Roku, you can see it's just, it's more just about you launch the app and then the app shows you stuff. They've now offer this section called Featured Free, which is pretty nice. See if it loads. Yeah, it's not working. But they do put an emphasis on free stuff that you can watch. And I'm going to show you Apple TV. Any Apple TV users here? So this is the non-4K version. Let's see if we can get it to here we go. So they have this kind of app launcher, which is sort of like Roku, but you notice Roku had this big banner ad over here. Apple TV doesn't do that. It's very fast. And if you press the home button again, you've got this nice menu here where you can sort of browse for different things from different apps. And you can see sports that are on, and news. So they kind of do a nice job of tying together different sources of video so you don't have to bounce between as many apps. And there's also Chromecast, which I don't know how well that's going to demo, but I think of Chromecast as sort of, it's good as like a supplemental device. The way Chromecast works is you pick a video on your phone, and then you send it to the TV, or you basically tell the TV to start watching a video. So on my phone here, there's a button here that I press called the cast button. Go to my office TV. It's going to connect to Netflix. And if I start watching a video, it's hopefully going to just pop up on the TV. Yeah. So that's actually kind of nice. Like, it's nice if you're just using your phone or using your tablet and you want to start watching something without picking up the remote. But not having an actual remote does get kind of annoying sometimes. So I kind of think of that as like, maybe don't use that as the centerpiece of your cord cutting setup. So let's see here. That's pretty much it for demos. Here's the tablet that I was talking about. The little box, you connect a hard drive to it. I could try to demo that, but I'm not sure how well it's going to work. Why don't we do some questions? I'm sure you have questions.
Anybody have a question for Jared up here?
I'm talking some of the other things, I guess the technology is older. If I'm going to get a new TV and a smart TV, do you have a recommendation of?
Yeah, if you're going to buy a new TV outright,
Jared, could I ask you to repeat the question for you too?
yes, good call. So, yes, so the question was, if you're buying a new TV, because like I said, Samsung, after a few years, maybe the app selection isn't quite as good and they don't update the software as much. Do I have a recommendation as for which TV to buy? A little tricky. I mean, the thing is, like, Samsung makes some nice TVs, and especially at the high end, if you really are going to spend a lot of money on a really nice TV, like Samsung's QLED line is really nice. But if you're just going for like a mid-range TV, there's TVs that have Roku software on it that are really nice. TCL is pretty much the main company that's known for making TVs with Roku. So basically, if I go back to Roku over here, the TV will have this software on it. And Roku has been putting their software on television since 2014. And all of those televisions still run the same software, still have all of the same apps. So worst case scenario, you can always get a streaming device and plug it into your TV. So it's not the end of the world if it stops updating and you have to spend $40 to get a new streaming device. But if you're just starting out, it is nice to get the Roku TVs because the software will be up to date and have nice features. Their Amazon actually puts its software on some TVs too. They have a partnership with Best Buy, so all the Insignia TVs now have Fire TV software on them, and Toshiba TVs do as well. The TVs tend to be smaller, so like 43 inches and less. So if you're in the market for a smaller TV, it's kind of the same thing of like deciding between the Fire TV with that more complex menu, but maybe more interesting in terms of how things are arranged, and Roku, which is a bit simpler but not as forward thinking. Sorry, I didn't catch the first part of what you said.
Are you familiar with IPTV?
IPTV? Are you? So the question is, are you familiar with IPTV? If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but what that generally refers to is cable companies delivering their TV service over the internet or over internet protocols. So Spectrum does this now with, in my area, they have a couple streaming services that you can get without a cable box, and it comes in through their cable modem or Spectrum approved cable modem, and but it's technically not delivered over the public internet, so it's supposed to be smoother and more reliable. Actually, the video quality is a little worse than some of these streaming services in my experience. I think there's potential there. Like I think some of the cable companies are starting to think about how they can offer better packages to their customers, and there will be, I think, kind of a slow shift. But at the same time, like they don't really want to get rid of the cable box revenue and that kind of stuff either. So it's been kind of a slow transition for them.
Do you have an antenna? And if so, which one?
I do have an antenna. It's a can't really show. It's actually over here in this window. It's one of the flat panel antennas. So I'm about 12 or 15 miles from downtown Cincinnati. So that's pretty good in terms of getting my local broadcasts. So it's just like a 35-mile flat panel antenna, and you kind of just have to experiment. So that site that I kind of mentioned before, tvfool.com, you go to it and you can plug in your address, and it'll tell you how far away your broadcast stations are, and that kind of gives you a sense of how good of an antenna you need. I think especially like where you are, you can probably experiment with like a flat panel antenna and see if that works. Before you start moving on to like outdoor or attic antennas or roof-mounted antennas, which are a lot more burdensome to install.
Can I share my experiences from?
Yeah, especially.
I deployed with flat panel antenna, 40-mile version.
Okay.
It's a brand in East Meadow. I live in East Meadow. Second floor of my condo, and I didn't have very much success.
No.
I think you really have to have a rooftop antenna or an attic antenna in order to really pull in the signal properly here. You can actually put an antenna that you used to see on the roofs inside your attic and pull in the signal that way.
I'm going to see if this works. So this is Tableau. Before I take the next question, so this is this device I was talking about, Tableau. So if you have an attic antenna and you have Wi-Fi, you would plug an antenna into this in your attic, and then you would use the Tableau app on your phone to connect it to your Wi-Fi network. And then when you're on a device like Roku or Apple TV, go back to the home screen here. I can. Yeah. You would just open the Tableau app, and then it's going to stream in your local channels. So it's actually a nice solution if you need to put an antenna up in your attic. because then you don't have to run cable down to all of your TVs. You could just stream the video over. Okay.
I have Optimum Cablevision, and I admit that I've gotten addicted to that 6-second rewind button. These have literally these. Do most of them have that?
Yes. Well, I don't know what Cablevision does. So, but Roku has a replay button right here. It's this this one that my thumb is pointing to. So that actually rewinds, and you can set it up to rewind and temporarily show closed captions for that part that it's rewound through. That's pretty nice. Yeah, most of these devices will let you do like a quick rewind by pressing a directional button, but it can depend on the service. Like, so there are some live TV services where it'll let you rewind during a live channel unless you're doing a recording already. So it can depend on which service you're using.
I have a question. If you're using a streaming device like a Roku stick, is there any noticeable delay? I'm watching CNBC. I want to see what the markets are doing. Time?
In terms of like, so the question is, with a streaming device, is there going to be a delay? You mean in terms of like the live feed versus the stream and how long it takes to see that?
Yeah, correct.
Right. Yeah, there is going to be a delay. Some handle it better than others. So this is Apple TV, and I'm not sure if I'm signed in, but Fubo TV is one of the better ones in terms of latency, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it is compared to cable. It probably will be, it could be like 10 to 20 seconds behind. It's not a huge thing. I think a lot of people think of it more for sports. They don't want to see spoilers. So yeah, if you're like looking at Twitter, looking at Facebook for live updates while you're watching a game, that is something that's like a work in progress for some of these streaming services, and some do it better than others.
Possible to get rid of your cable entirely and use your Wi-Fi for your internet service, or it's the laptop?
No, I mean, so you mean like using your phone as a hotspot for internet and like?
Yes.
Right. No, yeah, I know it's frustrating because we all want to completely get rid of the cable company. And unfortunately, the problem is that if you're doing that, I did a story about this recently. Like pretty much every single service has a data cap of usually between 20 gigabytes to 50 gigabytes. And I forget what the math is, but it's like, you could stream a very small amount of television per month on that before you run into problems. And some of them even have stipulations like you can't use your hotspot as the majority of your service, so they might like shut you down. It's really more trouble than it's worth. Yeah, unfortunately, state of internet competition being what it is, there's not going to be any quick fixes for that. You're still going to have to get home internet service. And, yeah.
I'm a little confused. So you have to have basic internet service still for the cable company?
Correct.
You never said that. You made it sound depending off every chat number, right?
Sorry, say that again?
You can't cut off everything.
No, you can't. No, you can't. You still need home internet service. That's correct. Correct. Correct.
So the intent is just to be the basic one thing.
That's correct. Yeah, if you want to use any of these streaming services, you still need to pay the cable company. My feeling is the average TV bill is $100 a month. So if you're paying, and I know there's bundle deals for TV, those tend to maybe knock $10 off your bill. But even if you're paying, $50 a month for one of these live TV streaming services, you're still saving money, especially if you need to watch on a lot of televisions and you're not renting a lot of cable boxes. And my feeling is like I'm not in it to spite the cable company. I'm just trying to do, get the best option. And if it turns out that cable is still the best option, which can be the case, especially if you have a good bundle deal, then that's what it is. But I think there's a lot of, as I said, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. There's different paths you can choose if you want to save money, and so it's just nice to have those options. That's kind of the way I think about it.
Jared, it's Rocco here. I have a couple of questions of my own.
Uh-huh.
Did you touch on Disney Plus? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so
Second, actually, I should have asked the other one first. 5G, and my mic just went dead. 5G Wi-Fi services home. Is that a potential way to get internet access to the house, high speed? And what do you think about that? And then Disney Plus.
okay, so 5G, potentially it's, and I know, did Starry launch in Long Island too, or just in like New York City? Did you hear anything about that? No. Okay, so I mean, it's interesting, and it could someday be a competitor. I think in some limited areas it is starting to be. The thing is that like deploying 5G is really hard. It's a lot of work in terms of like getting onto buildings and negotiating those deals and laying out the infrastructure. And so there's a lot of hype about 5G right now, especially from the carriers, especially from T-Mobile, which is trying to use 5G as sort of this justification for acquiring Sprint. They talk about replacing home internet service. The reality is it's going to take a very long time. I think we're looking at like 5 years at least before 5G is sort of this broadly available internet replacement. And as for Disney Plus, so that was announced. Well, it was announced a while ago, but Disney finally last week said how much it costs and when it's going to launch. So November 12th for $7 a month, and that's kind of it's a pretty aggressive attempt to take on Netflix in a sense. They're going to launch a bunch of original programming that's in the Star Wars and Marvel universes, and they're going to have a pretty nice back catalog of old Disney films and Pixar films, and because they acquired Fox, for better or worse, they're going to have acquired 21st Century Fox. They're going to have all the Simpsons episodes. So they priced it nicely, and they've got a lot of good stuff. And I don't know how interested I am in it personally, but I'm interested that there's going to be some good competition for Netflix for one thing, and for some of these other services like AT&T is trying to build a new streaming service around HBO, and I think a little pressure on them to maybe not charge as much is going to be nice.
Anyone else have a question?
No.
Just speak up, whoever has a question.
Yeah, don't be shy. Happy to answer any questions.
I found civic assessment changing from the cable station and taking access to my local baseball team, which has its own network. And I can't go in the week package because, as you know, it's blacklisted in New York. I can't see the Yankees with the blacked out. So,
Right.
is there an answer to that? We haven't found it yet.
Right. Yeah, that's really tricky. No, probably not. I mean, you're because on one hand, like the local stuff, like Spectrum does this. I don't know if Cablevision does, but like, you know, Spectrum might offer you like a basic cable service that Spectrum has here. Like I mentioned, they let you pick 10 cable TV channels, and then they give you all the locals. And like they have all the local access stuff. They're actually required to carry all of the local access channels, and so that's why they have them. But none of these like big national streaming TV services offer that. And if it's not, is it being delivered over an antenna? Do you know? No.
Yes,
So
yes, it's the Yankees cable channel. Yes.
no, but you're talking about. I'm sorry. You're saying local baseball, just like the Yankees.
Right.
I thought you meant like a high school baseball team that you're trying to follow or something like that.
Oh.
No, okay. So so Yes Network, yeah, basically any of these live TV services that carry Fox Sports will carry Yes Network. So yes, so you can do that. So you the cheapest option will probably be Sling TV Blue, which is $25 a month. I think they should have the Yes Network. I can't. Right, right, but all of that stuff is still like up in the air, and for now, like it's still business as usual in terms of like how you watch this. So let's look here. I'm looking on this website, the Streamable, because why not? Yes Network. What's the zip code here? 11554. So, oops. 11554. Oops. 11554, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Sling TV Blue has Yes Network for $25 a month. YouTube TV, $50 a month. PlayStation View, $50 a month. Hulu with live TV, $45 a month. So, like, again, all the ones that carry the Fox Sports networks will have the Yes Network included in your area. So.
He had a sub question to that.
Okay.
The blackout issue.
No, that's all right. If I can get
Right. No, the blackout. I think yeah, if you want to watch MLB TV, like which is that standalone, like out of market package of baseball games. So I'm a Yankee fan, and I can subscribe to MLB TV and watch Yankee games here, but I can't watch the Reds without getting one of these live TV services. Where you're in the opposite situation, where you can get one of these live TV services and you get the same Yes broadcast as everybody else. So yes, you can.
We have the lady in the back there first. Go ahead. Speak up. Do you need a smart TV? You need a streaming service. And the best, well, that's a tough one. You need a smart TV to use a streaming service.
Right. You don't. You need either a smart TV or a streaming device that you would connect to your TV. So here's this is an Amazon Fire TV stick, and you would just plug it into your television. Any TV that has an HDMI input in the back, you could just plug it into, even if it's not a smart TV. This is a Fire TV stick. Fire TV stick. Roku is also good. Yeah, either of those do the trick.
Gentlemen in front of us.
Yeah, and when you said local channel, when you say local channel, you mean CBS, NBC?
Correct. Your local broadcasts, yeah, CBS, NBC, Fox, ABC. CW in some cases is included as well. But not some of the local access channels or PBS. Like I said, PBS hasn't figured out a way to get into those live TV services yet.
And up front here.
If you do change your internet service and you have to change your email, is there an expedient way to do it, or you have to go piecemeal, person by person, organization, all these different people contact you, like Staples, CBS? You have to do each one individually right there?
No. Yeah, that's just generally an issue with changing your email address. It's going to be a pain, which is why most people don't do it. But I think what you would probably want to do is, get an email address from like Gmail or, Hotmail, and start that transition process maybe a few months before you switch, and, start forwarding your emails and start telling people and get started on that ahead of time.
I think we can wrap up now.
Yeah, go for it.
What's the least expensive internet access to your home or streaming service? Yeah, they're pretty competitive here on the line. Well, It depends on whether or not you have choice. In my condo development, when it comes to internet access, I have one choice, and I'll need small communication. Files have a pole on Front Street, but I can't get it. You're gonna pay about 80 bucks for internet access only. Between 70 and 80 bucks. What we need is competition, and we don't buy it to do it. You can't. I know. You always have to have that people. Okay? Jared, did you have a final slide?
Oh yeah, I can. Let's see here. I think we'll just throw it up here. Yeah, share the screen. So yeah, if you have, are you seeing my screen now?
Yeah.
All right. So if you have any questions, that's my email. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And again, all of the information that I talked about here is newman.com/East Meadow. All the links, this slideshow, the information about my newsletter and about Advisorator, which if you want more tech advice beyond cord cutting, you should really consider checking out.
So that's Jared Newman, EWMA.com/East one word. So all of these slides that were used in the presentation are online. All of the links that he mentioned on the website are at jarednewman.com/East Meadow.
Good.
Jared, thank you again for
All right. Thank you.
Take care, Jared.
All right. Bye.